DIIV Music Podcast.
And we're back from the podcast, and contrary to our tweets, we're going to be reviewing 5 albums this month instead of said 6.
We can't count.
Yeah. We're going to do Lucinda Williams' Ghost of Highway 20, and for those who were tuning in especially for that.
Bye.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Spotify had it, then it didn't have it, and whilst I have listened to it a couple of times, Pete hasn't listened to it at all, so I think easiest way to review this is just to say, if you're already a Lucinda Williams fan, you're going to like it.
My bad.
It's still good. And if you're not, it's about time you check this from the Lucinda Williams anyway. Anyway, moving on from that, what we are going to be reviewing is DIIV, I'm calling them.
Yeah.
DIIV, or... You know,
Die 4.
yeah, Die4, D4.
Yeah, I reckon it's Die 4.
Yeah.
So we're not even bothering anymore.
I should have looked at Wikipedia. It tells me how to...
Churches, always, always.
Anyway, the album is called Is Are, just to be really confusing. We're then doing Money. That's Money.
Yeah.
Suicide Songs.
Moni.
Yeah. Then Eleanor, and again, this could be Friedberger.
I think it's
or
Friedberger.
Friedberger.
Fried.
Yeah.
If my elementary German serves me there.
I'm presuming it's Friedberger.
I'll go with
New
Friedberger.
View. Shearwater, Jetplanes and Oxbow. And finally, Foxes, All I Need, as well as people texting me.
Who's texting you? Oh, are you live?
Oh, no, yeah, that's one of our listeners.
Oh, excellent. Hello, listener.
She's not requesting anything, though. So.
That's too late.
Probably just well, really, isn't it? So I guess we should start. Oh, first of all, I should say I should also apologise to most of the artists this month because due to us having quite a quick turnaround on this podcast and conversely then not having much time, both of us by the sound of it, they haven't really got the compulsory 3 listens across the board from us on this particular instance.
For shame.
So, yes. So taking that into account, let's start with D4.
D4.
Is Are.
What? I'm not. I know where you're going to come from on this, because I kind of suspect, based on previous conversations we've had about bands of this sort of nature, you're going to come at it from a certain opinion, and I respect that opinion. I didn't like this album at all.
No.
No. I listened to it, and listened to it, and for me, it just all rolled into one long instrumental dirge.
It is a very long album. This is very much a double album.
It's very much a double album, and it got to the point about halfway through where I was thinking, is this still playing? Which is never a great place to be when we're sat listening to these records.
It's never a great place to be when the album's 66 minutes long or whatever it is, either.
Yeah. Because, I mean, in the face of it, an hour can fly by if you're really enjoying the music.
It can.
It can. I didn't enjoy this at all. For me, there were no particular highlights apart from the short instrumental bursts of sound that broke up the monotony of the rest of the album.
But apart from that,
yeah, good album.
I had
We're
well,
going to rattle through this, aren't we?
yeah, we are going to rattle through this. My first feeling with when this album opened up, particularly first listen, was it's hello late 1980s, early 90s.
Yes.
Because the vibe was very much one of kind of Charlatans, Stone Roses, maybe a bit of The Cure, Mission thrown in as well.
Yeah, I'd say more Cure, Mission.
Yeah. What certainly American reviewers kind of call kind of dream pop is what the sound of it is. Lyrically, it's an album that is basically all about drugs and addiction, but from a guy that's sort of getting over drugs and addiction, and most of the album I think was written after him getting out of rehab. That band's second album, I wasn't aware of the first album, so I can't say what that was like compared to this. However, this has been an album that's grown on me on the repeated listens. I did manage to get 3 listens of this in. And part of me really likes it, and part of me totally agrees with one of your main points, which is the fact that it does have a tendency to all be a bit samey, and it does feel like a long record. That said, I do like the start of the album. First kind of 5 tracks I think are really good. There's a great riff on Under the Sun, which is the second track. Some great lyrics and stuff on Bent Roy's song, which is the third track. Dopamine's a good kind of rocky tune, and throughout this record are good songs, but they do kind of get lost a bit as the album goes on in a kind of, I wouldn't quite say monotony, but certainly on first listen I was definitely thinking, similar to you, is this record ever going to end? Subsequent listens, I haven't quite gotten rid of that feeling, but there's enough good music within the album to make me kind of go, oh no, I remember there's another good track coming in a couple of songs. I just need to keep a concentration, and it comes in like towards the end. There's a couple of good tracks, Dust and Waste of Breath, which at the end of the album are pretty good. So I think it's a good record and a grower, but had I been the person in charge of producing it, I would have made it shorter.
Yes, I agree. I completely agree with you on Mission. I thought you were going to mention Chemical Romance as well.
Yeah, I suppose.
It has that sort of, when you say dream pop, it has that sort of dreamscape sort of feel to it. You can imagine as a live act it just being one long instrumental with vocals.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With an awesome lighting show, no doubt. But yeah, no. So I thought that's where you may come from. But
I don't think they're going to have a awesome light show.
No, I don't.
Well,
think
I could be
so
wrong.
either. You could be wrong.
Yeah. So we move on to Manchester, and the second album from a band called Money.
Yeah.
Called Suicide Songs, which is an accurate description of the tone of the record, both lyrically and musically. Bizarrely for me, it kind of started off a bit like kind of REM doing an impersonation of the Verve.
Yeah.
Particularly since the guy's voice, particularly on the opening couple of tracks, definitely had a kind of Michael Stipe-esque.
Yes. Agree.
Lyrical tonal delivery to it. It's a very lyrically driven record, as one might expect from the title, I suppose. And there's not a lot of redemption going on here, kind of lyrically. Musically, again, we're sort of more kind of 90s indies here, I suppose. I've already mentioned the Verve. Kind of elements of maybe Echo and the Bunnymen going on there as well, I thought. And some of it is really, really wonderful. I'm Not Here, which is the second track, and All My Life, funny enough, which is the second last track, are a pair of almost kind of like music twins that kind of just bizarrely could be one and the same track, but kind of work well where they're positioned in the album. All of My Life being the stronger one. The album's final track, Cocaine Christmas and Alcoholics New Year, it's Fairy Tale of New York.
It was a riff on Fairy Tale of New York,
kind of thing, really.
I heard that in there.
Yeah, it's like, I know, let's do the version of Fairy Tale of New York, a kind of modern version, but with a similar kind of tone, really.
Yeah.
Quite fun. Again, it's one of these records that you can listen to, and lyrically it is quite funny. I like on, I think, the opening track, it says, I'm not trying to say I want to be God, I just don't want to be human, which I thought was quite a nice line. It's an okay record. I quite enjoyed it, but by the same token, it wasn't one that kind of said, listen to me again, listen to me again, listen to me again. So, yeah, it's alright.
Yeah, okay. I agree with everything you said up until that last point. I felt I could listen to this again and again and actually get more out of it per listen. For me, I didn't know the band were from Manchester, but now that I do know that, it makes perfect sense, because vocally you do get that real sort of late 90s sound, dad rock. It's not dad rock because that's doing it completely down. It's nothing like dad rock. But you do get that sort of late 90s indie, Oasis influenced. You remember there was all those bands in the late 90s that were like wannabe Oasis, like Embrace and so So you do get that sort of vibe. But of course, now that makes perfect sense. No, really good album. Very, as you say, not the greatest driven vocally, but actually, the good parts of Embrace, the Verve you've mentioned, obviously. The good parts. There were one or two. But mostly, as you say, Echo and Bunnymen, Verve. A real sort of classic 90s indie album. For me, particular highlights were opening couple of tracks, I'm Not Here, Night Came, the really sort of long one.
Yeah.
Actually quite, I kind of went with that. I kind of lost myself in that a little bit, so that was cool. Which is then broken up by Suicide Song, which is a lot more punchier. So there was enough variation between the sort of long indie with some sort of more up-to-date rock in there as well. So yeah, I quite enjoyed this album. In fact, I would say repeat listens are probably worth it because I think they would reward.
It's interesting because he says himself that he's not really a band person. He's more of a songwriter, and so the words are his thing, and he's just trying to drop some music around it to get it out there, as it were.
I suppose, and I suppose that bodes well for the future, because I could see that a third or fourth album being really good. I mean, really good.
We shall see.
Yeah.
Right, moving to New York, and Eleanor Friedberger, New View. This is her third album. New View. Peter.
I began this album by liking it, and I think it's because I reviewed that first album immediately beforehand. So it was like a breath of fresh air.
And were you singing along to Knocking on Heaven's Door in the opening
Yes,
track?
I was.
Sorry, he didn't mention his mother.
But actually, over the course of this album, I started to my classic attention starts to wander. I found that I wasn't as engaged the longer the album went on, which seemed a shame because I think actually it opened really strongly. So we're back in that sort of classic Americana folk territory.
Yeah.
And, that's enjoyable stuff. We haven't been there for a while.
No, it's been a while since we have reviewed an album of this ilk.
Yeah. So that was nice. As you say, apart from he didn't mention his mother. Sweetest Girl was obviously, cool. But then, as I say, not for me. I kind of started to feel more middle of the road, if I'm perfectly honest.
Yeah, I like this album to a degree similarly. I like clearly an observational writer lyrically, because there's lots of kind of little stories going on here about literally just day in life of kind of thing. One of the best examples actually being the final track, A Long Walk, which is one of my favourite tracks, which is quite literally the story of him going on a long walk, but it's actually quite an engaging story and quite engaging musically.
Yeah, agree.
As you say, it is a kind of folky rock record. She's got a nice folky rock voice, very reminiscent of Sandy Denny and especially Thea Gilmore. And musically, the album is a lot like Thea Gilmore, and I would suspect that anyone who is a Thea Gilmore fan would find something to enjoy within this record. Like you, I quite liked it without loving it, I suppose.
Yeah, that's a fair comment.
But it was interesting to read that Franz Ferdinand's song "Eleanor, Put Your Boots On" was written about her, since apparently she used to go out with Alex.
Really? Oh, there you go.
So we move on to Shearwater, Jetplane and Oxbow, the only band, in fact, on the podcast who we've reviewed before. Back in 2012, re-reviewed Animal Joy.
Wow, okay.
An album that we rated quite highly, and I think might have even made it into our top 10 that year. It was a pretty poor year.
Poor year, though.
And that's not to knock. That is not actually to knock Animal Joy, which is actually still a good album.
Still a good album. Yeah.
But yeah, so new album. We're very much talking 1980 as the time point of this album.
Yeah.
In fact, they make a point of stating that fact. That Scary Monsters was a big thing in approaching this album. And so there's use of Lindrums and stuff like that going on in the background. It's a very grown-up adult rock record, I suppose is the best way to describe it. You've got that, again, his kind of baritone-y voice that sounds like the bloke from Talk Talk. Again, I'm sure, as per most years in this podcast, there are several people that come along that tend to have that voice that sounds like the bloke from Talk Talk. I'm erring a lot already on this one. I like this record. First listen through, I was kind of not sure if I'm getting this at all. But it's the one that I have managed to listen to most, and that's probably the reason why I've gotten the most out of it. And it's the one I keep wanting to put back on, particularly as a middle part of the album, back channels for them, and to Pale King's Only Child section, which is just almost faultless. Really, really good, strong stuff. Mixture of kind of rock and pop. It's a song with Quiet Americans phone at the start, which at one point I swore was going to break out into a Howard Jones tune. Also great use of marimba and xylophone to get that kind of like spy kind of sound, particularly on Filaments. I think it's really, really, really good. Yeah. So it's an album that very much went from to yes. Really like this record.
I really like this record. The release is timely. I'll come back to that in a moment. Agree with you entirely. It's quite rare that we actually say the middle of the record was good. It's usually one half, half or the other. No, really strong middle. I was getting David Bowie all over this, and again, I didn't know the sort of the background thinking to this album, but no, I got a real strong sense of Bowie. And I thought. I began to think to myself, it's because you've been listening to a lot of David Bowie, Peter. You've been listening to too much. But no, there was a real that sort of late 70s, early 80s, late 70s, early 80s Bowie. Yeah. Who you know that vibe just ran all the way through this. And I really enjoyed this record. And yes, for me, it was one that I managed to squeeze in a bit of a repeated listen as well. And it certainly does grow. As an album, it's possibly the stronger album of the podcast, although we'll see in a moment. So a very enjoyable record. For the life of me now, it's 4 years ago, I can't remember why we didn't post their other album at number one that year. But this is certainly a contender in terms of the top 50 lists or whatever. I think this is actually their strongest album that we've listened to.
Praise indeed.
Yeah.
So we end back in the UK with the second album from Louise Rose Allen, otherwise known as Foxes. All I Need. Is she all you need?
Yes.
And musically?
No, this is a great pop record. Really enjoyed this. Definitely dug into my pop sensibilities. That is to say, at times, if I didn't, my only sort of I'm nitpicking now. If I only had some sort of reticence, it was, well, this is clearly pop music for people that have outgrown Little Mix. I had moments when I felt that, you know. But other than that,
so maybe that's my problem then, because I haven't grown out.
You haven't grown out Little Mix. Yeah. So there were one or two moments where I just thought, well, that's just cute. But actually, for the most part, I thought, this is a really good record. This is well put together, well produced. It's got great pop sensibilities running through it. It's put together well lyrically from a pop point of view. And I know we dabbled. Did we listen to her first album?
No, we didn't.
We didn't, but it was quite a popular. I understand it was quite a popular record.
It was glorious.
It was glorious, indeed. It was. So I actually feel this is another contender potentially for our pop record of the year. Who knows?
Ooh. I didn't like it as much as that.
I didn't think you would.
No, which is not to say I didn't like bits of it. I thought bits of it were very good. Body Talk, particularly, which is a big 80s pop song, which is glorious. Amazing, which is a good kind of modern day pop song, equally good. The rest of the album I was more hit and miss on, although I quite liked Money, which is another catchy pop song, although it did sound a bit like Taylor Swift's All You Have to Do Is Stay. I thought, as you got the chorus. She's got a good voice. I think she could do better. There was also a song on it that just sounded like Hosier's Take Me to Church as well. Scar, I think it was.
Oh, yes.
And that was kind of, I thought, a bit crap, considering how recent a song that is, to be already ripping off something like that.
I know, but I think that's the thing about it. It's current. You know, it doesn't have. I doubt it'll have the longevity.
No, and that's the current bit. I think was possibly the thing that's. I remember listening to the first album when it came out, and feeling similar about it, but actually feeling that at least she was trying to plough her own furrow, as it were. Whereas this seems to be a much more calculated album, and there's a lot of it, even on the songs that are good, that could be anybody else singing it. You know, you could just stick generic singer in.
Well, I think this is where my reticence was coming from, in terms of that current sound and that sort of appeal to the mass market, as it were. But hey, girls got to live.
Yeah, and it has to be said, we've listened to much worse.
We've listened to far worse.
So in that sense, all power to foxes.
Yeah.
And other wildlife.
Yeah. Anyway, so
that was the quickest podcast ever.
Are we going to pick one?
Shearwater.
Yeah, I think it's Shearwater. But followed by foxes, the Shearwater.
I think the guy from Shearwater is quite a kind of animal-y kind of person, so he'd probably quite like to be followed by foxes.
Yeah. I have no idea what you're talking about.
On that note.